Thank you, Mr. Kaye. That concludes my questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Ricketts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The use of cyber warfare, both in peacetime and armed conflict, has become a reality. Over the last 20 years, Russia has developed its capabilities, trained its hackers, advanced its capacity to undertake a wide range of cyber operations. Since Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, Russian hackers have breached Ukrainian telecom systems and executed multiple cyber attacks on the Ukrainian government. Despite these efforts, Ukraine has proven resilient. While the odds seem to favor Russia's dominance in cyberspace, they haven't prevailed against Ukraine, and Ukraine has largely maintained its presence online. Banks have remained operational, lights have remained on. Unlike the cyber attacks of 2015 and 2016 that caused blackouts, electricity and information continue to flow. While Russia possesses the means and capabilities and the intent to cripple Ukraine's cyber space and critical infrastructure, the reality has been different. Their efforts have not been successful. So, Mr. Jaffer, why hasn't Russia succeeded? Why haven't they been able to bring Ukraine to its knees from cyber attacks and turn off the power and so forth? What do you attribute Ukraine's success to?
Well, I think a few things, Senator Ricketts. One, I think that we did do a lot of work ahead of time, working with Ukraine to get it stronger, get it more defensible. A lot of the capabilities Ukrainians are deploying today are American technologies, built by American technology companies that have been hardened against these type of Russian attacks. So that's one, I think, answer to why Russia's been less successful than we would hope. I think the second piece of it is, frankly, that the Russians have not embedded as deep as they might have in the Ukrainian networks and delivered the capabilities they could have delivered early on in this conflict. And so Ukraine was able to get their stuff out more rapidly than I think the Russians expected. It's true in the physical world, and it's been true in the cyber world as well. And I think there's a lesson for that for the United States. We rely so much on our technological networks that we can identify ahead of time if the individual, if the private sector and public sector are able to partner effectively, we too can defend ourselves against these type of threats in a more effective way than we are today.
So do you think, I'm interested by what you said there about being embedded. Is this something where Russia was not looking at Ukraine as much as maybe they're looking at the United States, or is there a lesson here for us with regard to what else we need to be doing with regard to rethinking our strategies, our cyber strategies?
Well, I think that we know how deep the Russians and the Chinese are in our networks. Just over the past year, we've heard a lot about how deeper the Chinese have gotten and the fact that they're deploying actual disruptive and destructive capabilities in American systems through this Volt Typhoon set of attacks. So we know that they're doing it. We know that they're getting in place. Now, whether the Russians deploy those kind of capabilities, which we know they have, as deep in the Ukrainian networks or not is unclear. They clearly didn't use them. We've seen the Russians use destructive attacks in the past. We know they have the ability to wipe out systems. So I think the answer here is twofold. One, when we identify these capabilities on our networks, we've got to get them out. We've got to deter them from putting them in the first place, which we're not doing effectively because we're not really pushing back against Russian, Chinese, Iranian, North Korean attacks. And then finally, I think what the Ukrainians did effectively, which we still need to do more of in this country, is to partner between the public and private sectors to ensure that their systems are more defensible. We want to do that here in the United States. We're just not very good at it. We've tried for a decade. We need to get better at that and fast.
So we talked about what we can learn from this. What do you think our adversaries are learning from this based upon Russia, what they've done in Ukraine, and what they've not actually been able to get done in Ukraine?
Yeah, I think as we think about China and a potential Taiwan scenario, I think what they're looking at is if you're going to go in, make sure you have the capabilities you need both on the ground and cyber-wise, and don't go in until you can finish that conflict in a week. We thought it would be over in a week when the Russians invaded Ukraine. The Ukrainians were able to push back aggressively and hold the line and have held the line now for the better part of 2 years. So I think what our adversaries are learning is you got to get in, you got to get deep, you have to know your capabilities are there, and then effectuate them. And that's why I think that's why the Chinese are waiting, frankly, on Taiwan. They're not waiting because they're scared of us. We're not there. We can't get there in time to stop them. If we don't position stuff forward, we'll never win that fight, and they know it. So they're not waiting for us. They're waiting because they're not ready to go in fully, and I think that's the lesson they're learning from Ukraine.
But specifically on the cyber aspect of it, you think that what they're learning is they have to be deeper into the networks, like Russia should have been deeper into Ukraine's networks before they launched this attack, and you think that that's what the PRC is learning about Taiwan, that maybe they don't feel like they're deep enough into Taiwan's networks before they could be successful in executing some of these cyber attacks?
I think that's exactly it, Taiwan and our networks, because they want to be able to push back against us so that if in fact we were to intervene on behalf of Taiwan, they could cripple us as well. They know that's their strategic advantage. That's what they're looking to do. And that's why Volt Typhoon and the change in Chinese behavior that we've seen in the last 6 months is so critical to focus on.
Great. So, okay, I'm down to 2 seconds too, so I'm going to turn it back over to the chairman. But thank you very much, Mr. Jamal.
Thank you, Senator Ricketts. So in my initial questioning, I was focused on how we try to break through